Hello and welcome to my top 10 most likely national championship competitors for the next season based off of the information that we have in the transfer portal and recruiting. Let's get straight into it. So first off, obviously, I feel like this was just, this had to be because Georgia just can't seem to stop being goated out of their minds. We have Georgia. Georgia, they're doing really, really good at recruiting right now, but I haven't seen much from them in the transfer portal. But, of course, Georgia was – nobody thought Georgia was going to make another run for the national championship like they did this year, and they won it 65-7. So I'm going to go ahead and throw them at the number one spot simply just off of what happened last season. Georgia needs to stop being disrespected. Like last season, I don't think anybody thought Georgia was just going to back-to-back after losing as much as they did. But they did. Georgia is crazy. Second, we have Alabama. Alabama is doing extraordinarily good in recruiting, but not so much in the transfer portal. I think they got like 9 5-stars from recruiting. They're doing extremely good. And overall, Bama last year should have probably been fighting for the national championship. Not going to say they would have won it, but they definitely should have been fighting for it. After all, they lost to a 2-point conversion in overtime to LSU, and they lost to Tennessee after missing a field goal. And they didn't even get their shot at the SEC championship, and then they killed Kansas State in their bowl game. Bama should have been in the college football playoffs, in my opinion. And I just think they're only going to be better this season. They're losing Bryce Young, but they always get a great quarterback. I don't know what their quarterback looks like right now, but I definitely think Bama is still just going to be dominant. They're still going to run over college football, except this year they have Tennessee at Bama. They have LSU at Bama. They've got a good lineup. Really, if they choke again in the second year in a row, that'd be pretty sad. But I think Bama's definitely got a good shot. I'd almost swap them with Georgia, but again, Georgia did it last year. You just got to stop overlooking them. Number 3, we have Michigan. I say this strictly because right now the only competition I see up with Michigan is Ohio State, but considering they are at Michigan this year and Michigan is overall looking like a better team, the Ohio State is losing C.J. Stroud, and Michigan is keeping J.J. McCarthy. And I think Michigan's doing better than Ohio State in the transfer portal, and they're pretty close to him in recruiting. But Ohio State's been very good in recruiting. They're like number 5 right now. But I say this solely because I think if Michigan has a better shot this season from what we have seen so far at beating Ohio State and going to the Big Ten championship. And even just going to the college football playoffs with 1 loss. I think they have a better shot at that than Ohio State. That's why I say that. Number 4, we have USC. Caleb Williams and a very, very explosive offensive USC team. USC number 4 in the transfer portal and very high up in the recruiting class. USC is getting ready for the Big Ten, and I think this year they do stand a fine chance at winning the Pac-12 and going to the national championship. I don't think they'll win it, but I think they will definitely go. So one of the reasons why, sorry, I just went brain dead. One of the reasons I think USC is going to get into the national championship, even just the college football playoffs, is they got destroyed by Utah twice. I mean, they lost the last second once to Utah, and then they got killed by them. And I just think USC this year, with the stacked lineup only getting stronger, and it seems like their one problem being Utah kind of falling off a little bit, I think USC, really, their only competition is going to be Washington. And I think they play at Washington. Me personally, I think Washington is going to win the Pac-12. I think they're going to go to the national championship. That's my personal opinion, though. But if we're talking statistics and stuff, USC does stand a better chance. That's just my underdog prediction that Washington goes. Speaking of Washington, they're at number 5 for me. 10-2 last season really should have gone, in my opinion, if they didn't lose to ASU or UCLA. The UCLA loss is reasonable. It was at UCLA while they were hot. the ASU loss is unreasonable. They shouldn't have lost that game. ASU outscored them. We beat them. It was just unreasonable for Washington to lose that game, and ultimately it kicked them out of the Pac-12 championship somehow, and they got put up against Texas, and they beat them. They beat the crap out of them. So Washington, I'm just like, I mean, they're doing good in the transfer portal and in the recruiting. They're keeping Michael Penix. I'm assuming they're going to keep a lot of people from last year. Washington stands a fine chance, and considering I believe that Washington is hosting the USC game. They didn't play last season, which was a big one. They just happened to not play each other when they were both extremely good. But let's go ahead and look here. If I'm just trying to do this and I'm misclicking everywhere. Let's see. USC plays. No, they play at USC, so that's a game changer. That is a game changer. I mean, dude, all right, off topic though. No, I'll save that. Whatever. I think the Pac-12 is going to be the most fun conference to watch next year. I think the Pac-12 could have like 7 teams in the top 25 next season. I seriously think so. This conference is going to be crazy. I'm surprised that the Pac-12 is falling apart right now because we have Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, and now we have Colorado on the rise. Utah's still really good. Oregon State's on the rise. And I would even give credit to the smaller teams that aren't doing that good, like ASU and U of A. U of A's doing really good in recruiting right now. ASU is number 9 in the transfer portal. Like, these smaller teams are starting to build programs right now. Washington State, Cal, and Stanford, they're there. They're wins. They're wins. But yeah, I look at the Pac-12 right now, and I'm like, dude, stuff is starting to get crazy there. And I definitely say, I'd say USC's going to be ranked. Washington's going to be ranked. Oregon's going to be ranked. Oregon State's going to be ranked. Utah's going to be ranked. And I'm forgetting somebody. Whatever, a lot of teams are most likely going to be ranked next season, and I'd be very disappointed if they weren't. Number 6, we have the Texas Horned Frog, or Texas Christian University. The Texas Christian University Horned Frogs. This was the best picture I could find for TCU. They took all the pictures off for some reason. TCU doing really good in recruiting, doing really good in the transfer portal. They made a fairy tale run to the national championship. I think they're keeping Max Duggan this season. So I'm like, TCU's definitely standing a great shot. Except I'm not too sure, and I put them at number 6 because I do feel like TCU really scraped by last season. And overall, they lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. So it's just, to me, I'm like, yeah, no. I don't know. TCU's kind of lower down for me. And next up, we have Texas. Texas is doing really good in recruiting and pretty good in the transfer portal. But, this Texas team has been hyped up for the last couple of years. And I don't really like their quarterback right now. He is not my favorite. And Texas seems to have really good recruiting, really good transfer, really good team overall, but they can't seem to go more than 5 or 4 losses. They can't seem to push past it. And with TCU being a major competitor, I think it's also that matchup is going to be at TCU this year. I think TCU stands a better chance than Texas, so I'm going to put them a spot under. I do think Texas is going to be pretty good, though. Number 8, we have Florida State. This is the only top 10 ACC team I have because I feel like the ACC is really struggling right now. But Florida State is killing it in recruiting and the transfer portal, and overall, they had a really good team last year. Very sketchy team, not very good defense at all, but a pretty good offense, and I feel like they could build a very nice team. And I put them at number 8. I don't think they're going to necessarily win the national championship. And me personally, I don't think they're going to make it. I think they'll make it to the college football playoff, though, because the ACC is really shitty right now, and they don't have any competition. Clemson is falling apart. North Carolina I haven't seen them do anything in recruiting or the transfer portal. Who else is there? I guess like Wake Forest, Duke. I don't even know, man. Miami's a big competitor, but I think FSU's just they have the better stats, the better previous team and stuff like that. think FSU's just primed to make it. Primed. They do play LSU at FSU, though. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. That will be a great matchup, though. Number 9, I got to throw Notre Dame in there. I mean, after all, Notre Dame went 4 losses after taking a loss to teams like Marshall and Stanford. Overall, I mean, Notre Dame is hosting Ohio State this season. They got railed last season, but they're doing really good in recruiting and transfer portal and stuff. And overall, I just think I think they just had a shitty couple games last season. I mean, really kick out the Marshall game and kick out the Stanford game. Let's say Notre Dame doesn't choke those and wins those. They're a 2-loss team. They're a 2-loss team overall with pretty good wins on their resume. Notre Dame should have been a much better team last season and ultimately they just screwed themselves, in my opinion. So, Notre Dame, I'm going to just go ahead and smack them down at number 9. Number 10, I have Oregon. Oregon's doing really good in the transfer portal and doing really good in recruiting. And, Oregon was it's a difficult one. And it was kind of a tough one to put Oregon right here. I almost want to put Miami right here or Ohio State, but I did decide to put Oregon just because of my personal gut. Oregon is a very strong program right now and getting stronger. They were good last season. They're keeping Bo Nix. Like, they've got a very fine lineup. And right now I'm just like, it is really hard to put Oregon here, not because of how good they're doing. It's because I already have 2 Pac-12 teams way higher up on the list that I think have a much better chance. But overall, I look at Oregon and I go, wow, they have a really good lineup right now. There's also UCLA, who's doing number 2 in the transfer portal and really high up in recruiting. Overall, I mean, there's just so many Pac-12 teams that I think could make it. But right now, it is hard to put more than just 2 teams in the top 10 for each conference because I'm like, you just putting 4 teams in the national championship competitor. The Pac-12 is such a competitive conference that, like, USC would, like, these teams that would have to make the national championship, they have to be absolute powerhouses to survive in the Pac-12. I say the SEC is probably the number 1 conference because they contain teams like Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, really strong teams like that. But in my personal preference, I would have to say Pac-12 is going to be the most dominant conference next year. Because if you look at it and look at what we did last year and look at what is going on in the players, in the recruiting transfer portal and whatnot, USC's primed to do very good. Oregon primed to do very good. Washington primed to do very good. UCLA, even Colorado. It's like the Pac-12 is definitely, in my opinion, going to be the most dominant conference. So it is really hard to put this many teams up here because it's like there's so much competition. There might be a bunch of 2-loss teams like last year. There's a reason not a single Pac-12 team made it to the national championship, and it's because we were all butting heads with each other. We were all butting heads and we ended up kicking each other out because every team was so competitive and good. Every week was unknown in the Pac-12. One week, UCLA would beat a very hard team they were not predicted to beat, but then lose to Oregon, and then Oregon would lose to Utah, and then Utah would lose to USC. And it's like every week something was going on that would kick a team out, and the Pac-12 was definitely, in my opinion, the best conference last year. And honorable mentions, obviously we got to have Ohio State. I didn't put Ohio State here simply because I believe Ohio State this season will obtain a loss other than Michigan. They will obtain a loss other than Michigan, and then they'll lose to Michigan, which will hand them their 2 losses, and they won't be able to sneak into the college football playoff like they did last year. Although I do believe Ohio State should have won that game against Georgia, and they were a very good team. I don't think they'll be able to sneak in. Miami, got to put them up here because, Florida State is Miami's Florida State's hardest competition, in my opinion. And then LSU. I look at LSU and the recruiting and the transfer portal and I say, yeah, I think they're keeping Jaden Daniels. And after all, they beat, what's-their-face last year, Alabama. LSU's got a pretty good lineup. I just kind of threw them in there. I'm not too sure about that one. That was where things got sketchy. really, I'd definitely say like Ohio State and Miami are tied for 10th with Oregon, and LSU is like number 11, and then it's just a bunch of other teams. But that is all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and yeah, that is all for me. Adios.